There it is.
Is it?
It is. Good morning, Amy.
Hey, everybody. This is Amy Bernier with Being Brave with Amy B. And this is the very first live stream of the podcast. And I'm here with Rebecca French, and she is more than happy to be my guinea pig as we try to work this out for the first time ever. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So happy to have you all. Hugh, Jessica's dad, this is for you. You've been asking for a live broadcast for quite some time, and here it is. This is a fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. As you could imagine, is really, really a lot of how my life goes. I have so much to share, but that's for another time. Today is all about our friend, Rebecca French. She's going to introduce herself, and then we're going to start getting into her being brave story. Rebecca, hit it.
Hit it. Wow. Yep. So I am Rebecca. I'm 42. I live in Australia. I'm in Melbourne, so right down the bottom. And I have Atlas Soul Journey in its very beautiful infant days is my brand, and that's bringing people from where they are to where they and who they want to be. So that's all just starting out. It's beautiful. I've just almost we're a few more sleeps away from finally finishing up a 20-year career in law enforcement. So it's a big step out from where I was to where I'm going, and just collecting people along the way.
Did you say collecting people along the way?
Yeah.
I am definitely a collected one of your people, and I am honored and privileged to be on Team Rebecca. When I first met Rebecca, we decided to get on a call, and we ended up talking for like 4 hours.
Wow.
It was an incredibly long amount of time, but it flew by like you wouldn't believe. And those are like my absolute favorite kind of conversations, when time just poof, like doesn't feel like it's passing at all, and you just feel like you're talking to a soul sister. She has so many different being brave stories. And so we're going to have a conversation, about an hour-long conversation about one or many of those stories. But I want to start out by asking you what I ask everybody, every guest, is what is your personal definition of being brave?
Is there just one? Do I have to stick to one?
This isn't like a you better get this right. Like this is when you think of being brave, and for yourself, for others, like what does it mean to you?
There's so it's about the being. It's not hiding or shying away from what you feel or what you don't feel or what you think you should put over or what someone is expecting from you. It's just actually being yourself and then taking that with you and not changing it and not altering that and not trying to squish into a little box, or it's the very first step in being brave is just being who you are. And standing by it and not trying to be anything else when other people are trying to jam you into corners or boxes. Or the start of braveness is just being who you are.
Being who you are. I remember watching a TEDx talk, and I can't remember the official title of the woman that was speaking, but she was talking about how, people throw around be who you are, like, oh, well, just be who you are. Yes, Hugh, I'm doing this for you, by the way. Hugh says, "Yay, I made it to the lives. Congratulations." This was a fly by the seat of your pants thing, and I definitely shouted you out at the beginning because you've been asking for this for a while. So happy to have you. Thank you for inspiring this spontaneous podcast. I appreciate you and I love you so much. So I was watching this
Brave, Amy.
Huh?
We're being brave, Amy.
We're being brave. Being brave is a state of being. And that's kind of redundant, right? But I was watching this TEDx talk and it really, really hit me. And it's talked about how people throw around that, like, just be yourself, as if being yourself is in our society, in our world society, like easy. Like it's, filled with ease and you just do it. And when you're a kid, absolutely. Like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And as an adult who has conditioned beliefs from culture and family and school and marketing and media and all of these things, we get filled up with these stories that we unconsciously choose, and we think be yourself is, for me in the past, it's, oh, well, I'm a teacher, or oh, well, I'm a CrossFitter, oh, I'm a yoga teacher, oh, I'm a student, oh, like all of these things. So for me, being myself has been a being brave journey, because it's taking in these different identities and going, first of all, recognizing it, like having an awareness around it, and then saying, like, is this true? Is this for me? And the releasing of the things that are not for you is being brave, like a motherfucker, in a society that really is encouraging us, to put it nicely, to be the same, to conform.
It does. We're conditioned to, we need a label. We need to add something to our name to make it, to add value so that we think people are interested. Instead of just saying, I'm Rebecca, we need to add this, and I, but it's like, no, I'm just here. I am me. This is it. This is as brave as it gets, and as raw and fun and crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy seeming. I actually just got to an Airbnb today, and I was talking to one of the hosts, and I had this thought, like, she's going to think I'm crazy. However, she is a yoga teacher and a love and relationship coach from Hungary. And I just knew that the exploratory nature of how my life has really been unfolding wouldn't be something where she went, what? And at this point in time, I'm not as concerned with other people's perceptions, but I won't lie, there's still a portion of me that wants to be accepted, that doesn't want to feel crazy and all of that, while at the same time I'm working with being totally okay, if if that is the response. But it's a work in progress, you know?
And do you think we ever get to the point where it feels completely natural? Like I still kind of feel like I need to add these little things about, to justify my existence almost. And I'm getting, yeah, it is. It's a work in progress. And I just wonder, if, is there going to be a time where I don't feel like I need to add that stuff in? Or that thought of, this person's going to think I'm nuts.
Do I think that there's a time when that just is released? I think that, yes. I think that ultimately we're working a muscle, that hasn't been worked. Well, we're working on it a lot now, but up until our intentional choosing to work on stepping into who we be and releasing anything that is not aligned with us, like, it's like a practice. It's like for me, a lot of it was tied to people pleasing and overachieving. So
Yeah.
I started this process of, instead of just blanket saying yes to everybody, I would start to ask myself, like, is this something I want to do, or is this something I don't want to do? And just pausing just enough to be like, is this a yes or is this a no? And I can say it flippantly, like, oh, is this a yes or is this a no? However, at the beginning of my journey, probably 8 or 9 years ago, that wasn't an easy question to answer, because my safety was tied to saying yes all the time, because I had created this identity around being there for others at the expense of myself, not even realizing that that's what I was doing. So is this a yes or is this a no, was a big fucking deal. Is it less of a big deal now? Yes, and it depends on what it's about. You know?
Isn't it? We seem to be able to let go of these layers of stuff in such strange ways. And sometimes I find myself acting, in that people pleasing, or I won't say that out loud or whatever. And it can be the smallest thing that just means nothing. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? How do I? And then the big thing happens and I'm just like, hell no, not happening. And I'll stand really firm or I go all in. And yet another seemingly really insignificant thing causes this turmoil of, how do I say no? Or how do I? And it's
So it's a
insane.
thing.
It's
That's a
linear.
real that's a
Yeah.
real thing. So right after I had resigned from teaching, which PS, today is the 6-year
Anniversary day.
anniversary of me resigning from teaching. Um, so that's a big fucking deal. And that went by fast and very, very slowly, all at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm really proud of myself. And there's lots of stories tied to that. But that's not what today is about. Um, when I first resigned from teaching, someone close to me sent me an article. I think it was from Elephant Journal, actually. And it was talking about living in backwards world. I read this article and I was like, holy fucking shit. My whole life has just been explained to me in one article. I feel seen, heard, and understood. And this was the concept. The concept was that if you had grown up in a dysfunctional slash traumatic environment where there was instability either in a physical way or an emotional way, and you didn't know what was coming or going, what
Mm.
happened was these big things like emergency level upsets became normal. So our nervous system adapted to that as the normal. So a lot of us that have grown up with, just instability, and I say just, but it's not a just. If you grew up with instability, it's important. The language is important. Just can take a lot of power away
Just.
from something. So if you grew up with instability as you were growing up, you adapted to um, more chaos than, let's say, the average person, whatever that means.
Oh, for sure.
So a lot of us that had those experiences at a young age oftentimes are attracted to jobs where we are helping or fixing, and we are like EMT, teacher, nurse, law enforcement, firefighter, these kinds of things where it is imperative to be calm, to be the calmest person in the room during an emergency situation.
Mm.
And what happens is we are excellent at these things. We are excellent in these experiences. Where we aren't excellent or aren't as excellent is in those moments of peace and calm, where like the chores happen and the errands happen and the just being an everyday person thing. So where the backwards happens is, well, we'll say average person, just for convenience sake, is having those everyday chores, errands, routine, experiences, and that's their normal. And their nervous system has adapted to that. When they
Mm.
have emergency situations, their nervous system responds appropriately.
Appropriate, yeah.
And And then is like, oh, emergency, emergency, emergency. If you live in backwards world, then the reverse
That's our
happens.
normal.
You're calm in the emergency, in the chaos, in the instability, relatively speaking. And it's the everyday, routine, peaceful, ease-filled situations that now have the emergency, because it's that sense of like that we learned and we adapted to is it's the calm before the storm. So hypervigilance and anxiety can come in during those times because that's the unpredictable time.
Yeah. Backwards life. Yeah, that's yeah. That
It's
nails it, doesn't
mind-blowing,
it? It is.
especially
It
when you
is.
when you like receive that concept for the first time. You're like, what? Holy shit.
I know. I do so much better in a crisis than living my daily life.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a work in progress too. I mean, I'm doing it better now than I've done it for years, and taking
Sure.
that step back again, and recognizing sort of towards the end of 2021 that my body is not in a good place and my brain is in meltdown mode, and seeing that before it happened again like it did in 2016, and going, whoa, uh-oh, you can't live like this. And knowing that heightened sense of everything is just waiting for a disaster, and recognizing it was such a powerful moment to then be able to step back and say, no, I'm not participating in this anymore. I'm not on this wheel. I'm not getting in. I'm not on the ride. I'm not catching the train. Can't tell you.
Right. So we're going to back up because the people that are listening have no idea what you're talking about. They
No.
don't know your story yet. So
Sorry.
can you start it? So Rebecca has a multitude of experiences as a law enforcement officer in Australia, and she has experiences with PTSD and a host of other experiences that she then had after she got the diagnosis of PTSD. I would say 2 times, is that correct? It was like two triggering events, and then the issue with the pandemic.
The pandemic. Yeah. So 2016 for me was really hard work. Oh my goodness, it was just a disaster. And I had 3 really little kids, and I was training, and I was bodybuilding and working and shift work. And I went back to, I'd come from
So before
a,
you elaborate, will you like take us through a day in the life of
in 2016.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I would wake up at around 6 a.m. Potentially having only had about 3 or 4 hours sleep, depending on what time I'd finished the night before. And my ex-husband would get up and be gone for work at about 6:30. So I would sort of wake up when he woke up, and then my alarm would go off at 6:30, 7:15. And it was just on. There were 3 children. They're all within about 4 years of each other. So they're now sort of 14, almost 12, and almost 10. So there's about 4 years and 2 months from woe to go. So, and they were little, you know, they were born in 2008, 2010, 2012. So I'd just get up and do that. So it'd be in the shower, may or may not jump on the, do a walk or something, or just get straight out to them and start the day. And it would be, I was weighing and measuring all of my food. Everything that went in was the perfect amount of grams of fat, carbohydrates, protein. And that started before before I'd even woken up. I was literally putting food on scales and going, how much yogurt, how much fruit, how much, and then the kids, getting them up organized. So I think at that point I had 1 in school, 1 in kinder, and 1 in daycare, not full time with daycare and kinder. So would depend on the day, and I would have them out the door by 8:30 in the morning. So there'd just be this chaos of get up, get fed, feed them, get them dressed, get going. And then depending on what time my shift started for the day. So I was doing a lot of afternoon shifts because that worked really well in reducing childcare and being able to drop kids off and pick them up and all that sort of stuff. So often my work day would start at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Once I was free of the school run or the kinder run or whichever, I'd then go to the gym for a couple of hours because, why not? So usually about 90 minutes because the gym crate was 90 minutes. So I would fill that 90 minutes with throwing around heavy things and trying to commit to shrinking my physical body and strengthening it and just inside. Then I'd go to work, of course. And I was a senior member at that point. I think I'd done 15 years or so in the police, which is really a long time. I think the average lifespan of our Victorian police at the moment is about 7 or 8 years and a little bit less for women. And
Whoa.
So I'd already done 15. And I was just responsible for these junior members. And that just created a whole new level of stress because I felt incapable and incompetent. I felt like I didn't know what I was doing despite all my years of experience. And
so did you feel like an imposter? Like you were somehow
I'm like, how have I
fooling
made
everyone and like one day they might find out?
I don't know what I'm doing. Despite having 15 years experience, it was just insanity how my brain was working at that point. And it was relentless. I was in a really busy station. It's sort of the western suburbs of Melbourne. And we were doing, between 15 and 30 jobs a day that we were being called to for assistance.
Like, what's the variety of that? Just to, like, 15 to 30 jobs, you said?
Domestic violence, violent offending, the burglaries, like people just running, like smashing through doors and running through houses, that sort of stuff. And it was just this constant adrenaline rush, which was exciting and fun, but also terrifying. And there was no time to recalibrate from one thing to the next. And you get to one thing and you realize it's not as serious as it was made out to be because someone just wanted the police there. And you work through it and you sort it out and do what you need to do and, whatever happens next. But then the next thing has come up. And so it's just this constant peak and peak and peak and peak of adrenaline. And it's addictive. It's really, really addictive. And I was loving it. And of course, then I'd do 2 hours overtime and come home at 1 a.m., into bed at 2, and then back up at 6. And I might have even done a little workout in the gym at work on my way back through just to burn off the caffeine and everything else. I think I was up to about 8 coffees a day at that point.
What kind of thoughts were you thinking about yourself? So I hear you saying like, you are going to like max 30 incidents within a shift. Most of them have to do with like violence or breaking in. So like not small things, it's not like someone didn't use their blinker scenario, and you have this feeling and this sensation that how did I end up being in this powerful position? Oh God, like they might find out that I'm not really like capable of doing this. So there's that story running. What other thing? And then you said you're like addicted to the higher and higher levels of adrenaline. What are you telling yourself? Like this is just life. Like I love my job. Like this is exciting. Was there did the bottom drop out every 3 days? Like what were you noticing and telling yourself?
I wish I could remember more about how it ended up like that. And I think that's part of the trauma response is I've kind of deleted chunks so that
Sure.
I don't have to remember what was going on. But I just figured the more I trained, the more I exercised, the more control I had over what I ate, and the more my physical body changed, then I would appear to be strong and appear to be on top of everything, and then everything else would just follow.
Sure.
So it was layers and layers of make believe. But I wouldn't go back and undo it, because I learned, obviously coming through all of that, I've learned a lot, but I look back now and I can see how other people behave like I behaved. And I go, oh no, warning, warning, warning. And it was so much about just avoiding reality. So if I was so busy, so wound up at work all the time, or in the gym, or in the kitchen preparing food, what I know I wasn't thinking was about my actual life. So
Right.
there was no room to actually sit back in my actual life and think, how did I get here? Am I happy? What am I doing? How's my marriage looking? Am I being a good mum? There was no space for that, because it
Right.
was just a checklist. Gym,
Right.
food, fed, dropped off to it, blah, 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 blah. There was no thinking time for,
Right.
am I happy? Am I connected? Am I my best version of myself? Am I bringing out the best version of the people in my surroundings? I know none of those things were in my mind.
Well, and it makes total sense that you're like, well, I think my brain is doing me a favor by not allowing me to access like what I was thinking. And I can really relate to that because in teaching, like you're on. It's never ending. There's always more to do. There's always like, it's just like you never get done the thing, like the pile of things that you're supposed to do. And how many times are you in front of people while you're figuring it out or being asked to change? Oh, I know we told you to do it on this and do this way, but now we're going to do it in this way and this way. And the test scores really are important. So don't fuck it up. Like it's just that running and running and running and running and running. And that's normal. Like life has never not been that.
No,
So
it just
there is
was.
no space of thinking. It is a very instinctual adaptation to the backwards way of living. And that's the whole fucking point. Because when you're in survival mode, you're just doing, and could be overthinking as well, but like the overthinking is really just finding where I'm supposed to do next and what I'm supposed to do next. And it's a very like intense survival mechanism. So
Yeah. And it
I don't have a
worked.
lot of
It worked for such
it's
a long
very
time.
efficient
It was
until it
super,
doesn't.
super efficient until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'd oh gosh, and your brain is so clever at reminding you that you're not smarter than your brain. And
Give me an example. What you mean of what you mean,
you,
if you can.
well, you think I know I fully thought I was completely on top of everything at that point in my life. I was super, and I was having that reaffirmed by people around me. You're amazing, you're incredible, look how much you do, and yay. And because my physical body was shifting and changing so much, there was a lot going on. And of course, then I go, oh, it's just, I'm just doing a bit of this and a bit of that, which takes 18 hours of my day. Oops, not sleeping. So what I mean by what I thought I was outsmarting.
I just do a bit of crack before I go to work, and a little bit of crack in my coffee in the
Yeah.
morning, and it's all good.
God, imagine if I was doing that, because I go, what did I look at all the things I did do without it? I'm going, wow, how good, cool. Anyway, but your brain, you try and outsmart your body and you try and outsmart your brain, and it catches up with you when you least expect it. So For me, I was getting a lot of nightmares. That was one of the first things that started to play out for me, was my sleep was so minimal anyway, and it was riddled with crazy and I dream in color and I dream in dimensions as well. I can, like, my dreams are like movies, and sometimes I'm watching the movie and I'm watching me in a dream, or sometimes I'm first person, like I'm in the dream and it's like I'm some kind of avatar in there, and I'm participating and watching what's going on. And so my awake body is going, we got this. My dream state was chaos and hectic and horrible. And I'm going, oh, I've outsmarted myself. I'm doing really well. Look at how together I am. And yet waking up, I'd wake up out of my bed. I was out of my bed ready to go and do whatever was happening. And I'm like,
So you're running away from your real life, like your everyday, like what's happening in real life, and you're also running away from the things that are happening in your dreams as well. So like you're a professional at avoiding the present. Is that
and it works.
Yes, true?
Yes. I was, of all the things I felt or didn't feel and thought I was failing despite evidence to the contrary, I absolutely knew my avoidance was on point.
So what was your breaking point? What was the point of no return for you when your body or your everything caught up to you? Your brain, your body caught up to this strategic avoidance.
My beautiful friend, she's older than I am, and she's incredibly wise, and she's an incredibly amazing woman. And in the gym, and she just looked at me one day and said, how are you? Like, what's going on? You don't look, she's just said something. And I went, what? And told her about this nightmare that had happened. And it had, so I think I used to get to the gym about 9 or 9:30 in the morning. And so I'd already been awake for 3 or 4 hours, and it was still, this dream was still rattling around in my head. And there was points at that time where these dreams I was struggling to recognize if they were dreams or something from my life. They would flash back through. And so I was having these flashbacks of life, and particularly, work things, and should I have done this, or should I have said that, or what if I'd got there sooner, and this guilt about not being able to fix everything and solve everything and prevent the world turning to disaster for other people. And this dream it had rattled me. And this beautiful woman, she just looked at me and said, how are you? And I just dropped to the floor. I couldn't. And I literally, and she was like, uh-oh. And I was like, uh-oh.
I have an experience almost like, identical to that one.
And it was so surreal. And I know we still talk about it, and I just go, imagine if you'd have never said anything that day. Imagine if you weren't there. What would have happened next? Because at that point, I'd already had a really terrible morning lifting, and I'd started out, I think I was warming up on about 17.5 kilo dumbbells. I don't know what that is in your language. Heavy. And I couldn't get the rack.
A lot. You couldn't get it back on the rack?
I just couldn't. And then I went, because you have these strong days and these weak days, and obviously, not sleeping. And to my credit, I was eating well, but,
But everything was measured. You were hitting all your macros to the decimal point.
Oh, exactly. Like 101 grams of chicken was like, put it back, put a gram back, put a gram back. And I got down to like these 5 kilo weights, which is about 10 pounds. And I couldn't even pick them up. And yet I'd been doing 3 times that in the days leading up to that. And I just went, oh, that's, and I just went, you know what,
Whoa.
I'm having a bad day, blah, blah, blah. And I'd put them back and thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and do something else in another section that I'll scrap today's
Some
program.
cardio.
I'll just do something else. Yeah. and that's where I was sort of intercepted by my beautiful friend, and it was just on from there. And I'd had a couple of wake-up calls from some friends with already diagnosed PTSD at that point. And I admired those guys. There were 3 guys, and they were all in various states of repair and disrepair and, you know, struggle and stuff. And I remember thinking, oh, thank God I'm not like them. Thank God my brain works better. And between the 3 of them, they completely
I'm so glad
me
that you're saying these things, because that's the thing, right? We think we're fine. We have judgment of others. We're like, we're doing the right thing. We're super women. We're Superman. You know, you're super person, depending on how you identify. And then it all just stops working. And it takes people, it takes a community
I don't
be
know
okay.
how I got beaten over the head, you know, metaphorically speaking. And there was a week where I think there wasn't a day that one of them didn't contact me saying, have you made an appointment with your doctor? I'm going, I don't need, fuck off. What do you know? You know, despite, you know, and I tell them quite regularly that they kind of saved my life in many ways. And so I did. I made that doctor appointment thinking I would just get a week off. And I went to my GP and said, you know, pretty frankly, what's been going on. And she went, oh, that's interesting. And because I'd seen her on and off. So my menstrual cycle was going crazy. My moods were just, and I'd been off to an endocrinologist. And he's like, yeah, welcome to perimenopause. It's a bit early, but, you know, have fun with that. And then he touched on.
Thanks.
I know. He's.
Meanwhile, you're not being like, were you being like, oh, I only eat like this many grams of protein and this, da 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 da. Like, was there an awareness around how you were potentially contributing to what you were experiencing?
No. God, no. Because the world was telling me
right,
how
because
much
you weren't.
Doing.
Right, because look how thin you are, look how strong you are, look how gut you are.
Yeah.
Like,
go you.
Yeah.
I don't even think I mentioned to the endocrinologist. And it was literally just, here's my test results and here's what's happening and here are my symptoms. And he touched on stress. So that was in the January of 2016 that he was like, are you sure you're just not a bit stressed? And he relayed some stories to me of his, I had a woman pause at 42. That sucks. I'm 42 now, you.
And I'm 44.
And you're 44?
No pauses so far.
Oh.
Of any kind. Woman, air, man. Well, don't get off topic, Amy.
That's a subject for another day.
Different being brave.
Swipe left, swipe left, swipe left.
No. My God.
He touched on, endocrinologist is like, are you sure you're just not stressed? I'm like, why would I be stressed? I'm in control of everything. I remember saying to him, like with complete and honesty and oblivion, I'm like, what do you mean? And he relayed some tales of his internship, and he was an emergency doctor and all that sort of stuff. And we're very similar ages.
Did he also have perimenopause early as well? Was that he was relating?
I think he might have been. He's like, and I think he was being really nice by saying you're in perimenopause instead of saying you're cooked, go and have a nap. I just,
Oh, Steve Hardison. We love you, Steve. Loving you.
I think he was just trying to be polite. But that was in
Sure,
the
I
January.
mean,
That was in the January, and I kept doing all of this until the October. I didn't collapse until October.
whoa.
10
So,
months after that appointment of just go.
damn. You were committed. You were
God.
committed to your way of
I
being. Since Steve came on,
was
you were committed to your way of being, which was
hectic.
avoiding the
Avoidance.
present moment and, you know, being superwoman, overachieving, proving,
Yep.
earning, you know, all of that nonstop. And, you know, it can look different in our lives, you know, but it has a similar quality of being like a wind up toy, and you want to keep staying wound up. You want to just keep going. Like there isn't the where like all of the energy runs out. So you're
No, because
going and you're going and you're going and you're going and you're pushing it and you're forcing it and you're going and you're going and you're like, it for me at least now upon reflection, it's as if, and I don't know if you feel this way as well, like it had this sense of like fighting for your life, you know, fighting for your identity. Because if I wasn't doing these things, who the fuck would I be?
yeah.
You know?
And that was where the avoidance was, is I didn't know who I was or what I wanted or where I wanted to be. So I just found a thing that I liked and ran with it. Literally miles, hundreds of thousands of floors on the Stairmaster. You know,
Oh God.
like do you know your
I
elbows?
relate. Say that
Your
what?
elbows can sweat on a Stairmaster. I remember like doing up to an hour on that thing and just the sweat.
Oh my God.
Elbows.
Glutton
Like,
for punishment. The Stairmaster is like, oh, like cardio death.
I've got a playlist. I've got a
But of
playlist
course,
that's like something with dealing with the cardio or something, and I would just add songs to it to just numb out. And I think,
you know what I used to do? I used to run on the treadmill to whoop whoop, pull over, your ass is too fat. Whoop whoop, pull over, your ass is too fat. And I'm like, if anybody knew what I was listening to, it was basically like self-abuse. But I'm like, oh, it's rap, it's upbeat. Yeah, my ass is too fat. Like, and now I like look back at pictures and stuff, and I'm like, I think a lot of feminine identifying beings say things like, man, I wish I was as fat as I was the first
the
time I ever
first
thought I
time
was
I thought I
fat.
was fat.
Because what the fuck? And it just shows you like our perceptions of ourselves, is like, and this is just so many levels, right? It's like our perceptions of ourselves can be absolutely incorrect. And it's so filled with self-judgment, self-loathing, self-hate, like just us not being enough and always trying to work towards. Bye, Steve. He's heading to dinner with his girlfriend. We'll catch the whole show tomorrow. We love you.
Enjoy. She's
Absolutely.
a lucky
Tell Amy we say hi. It's like the levels of what we've chosen to take on really at a time when there may not have been so much opportunity to choose, really, of these decisions of who we are, and a lot of it for a lot of us is not enough the way we are. And so for me, the being brave journey is so much about reclaiming like the innocence, reclaiming that part of me that is not wrong, that is not bad, who has never made, a messed up failing, has never failed, has always been successful because we do the best that we can with in the moment. And this self-judgment, this self-hate, the things that we're taught, really through living a life on earth, it's the releasing of those. It's the, oh my God, like, right? The whole wish I was as fat as I was the first time I thought I was fat. Like, being brave is about shedding all those things that were never true to begin with and replacing that self-judgment and not enoughness with acceptance and eventually love.
And love.
Because
Yeah.
we're here to love, we're here to be interconnected. And I don't know about you, but for a very long time, like, it didn't feel true. Like, I knew it was true somewhere in my being, but in my life that I was experiencing, that was not showing up.
It didn't exist. No. And I don't remember until, way too late in my life that it was okay to be in love with myself and to be actually to actually admire who I was for what I was. I don't remember being allowed that opportunity. And it was, I guess, a combination of upbringing and society and the schools I went to and the people I hung around or whatever. You just don't blow your own trumpet. You just let your actions speak for themselves. And that's what I'd created, was this physical body that people could clearly see took a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I still downplayed that. I still was just, oh, it's just something I do, or it's just the way I am, or there was
You were
no
fighting to make yourself smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until your body was like, fuck this shit in like 15 million different ways.
And even coming back to going to my doctor and saying, oh, can I just have a week off, and telling her what was going on, and she's like, how about a month? And I was off work for 2 years. And it wasn't even, and so
2 years later,
and I hooked up with this psychologist, and it wasn't until I got to the trauma clinic at one of our hospitals here that work with emergency services and veterans, and I got the psychiatrist there. I saw her over three occasions over 3 weeks. And it wasn't until I literally had, and everyone had said, oh, it's PTSD, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, I'll be back at work by, Feb. I'll just be a month off or something, And I got handed
just another tick box, another thing to check off before you went back into it.
Yeah, going, you have PTSD, and me going, oh, that'll just take 5 weeks to sort out. I'll go to the counselor, go to the psychologist every week for a few weeks, and we'll be right, and I'll be back at work. And I remember saying to people, oh, don't worry about that. I'll be back in a minute, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I had these pages, these professional people who do PTSD is their life. They work in a clinic that only deals with PTSD. And I'm still going, maybe they got it wrong. Maybe that's not what I have. Maybe, I think it took me about 6 months of work to go, oh, there is something not quite right in there, isn't there?
Well,
I just leave them.
Like, it makes total sense that you wouldn't want to get on board with it, because your whole identity was wrapped up in the doing. So of course thoughts of, oh, they must have gotten it wrong, like I'm going to be the one where they misdiagnosed me, right? Like, thoughts like that make so much sense, because when you all of a sudden, and I can relate to this through my chronic pain, oh, I'll just take a week off and then my back will be better and then I can come back. I didn't end up going back to teaching either. And I had to actually apply for sick bank days, like, through the union. And I was like, I don't think that, like, this applies to me because I don't have cancer. And my ex-boyfriend was like, Amy, you can't walk. Like, okay, so you're not dying, but you can't walk. Like, it took people outside of me that cared about me as well to be like, oh, like that. And like, Amy, you need some medicine. Like, this is like the
It's
stories I could
serious.
tell you. It's, I won't right now. But like this story, like I totally relate in my own way. Because who are we if we're not doing the things that we've always done?
Done. Exactly. And I had no idea. If I wasn't
Well, of course
working
not.
and being a mum and training, I had nothing. I had nothing beyond that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm
Got a
sure I
little
did.
rogue hair over there. I just noticed my hair sticking up all this time. No biggie.
I don't think
This
it's
is
been there
really
the
me.
whole time. I didn't have any other person to be except busy and avoidant and strategically just making shit up to get by. I didn't, there was nothing. I was just this human doing. There was no being about any of it. And I think my regret now is that I've lost those years where I could have been more like I am now and having those gorgeous conversations and meeting people and seeing people for who they are and all that sort of stuff. And I was just so caught up in doing, and I missed all of those opportunities to just connect. There was no connection.
So I think that we can all say that, right? We can all look back and say, if only I'd learned this when I was 33, if only I'd learned this when I was 22, if only I had learned this when I was 18. And really, that's just another layer of self judgment, you know? And is it helpful?
It's not.
No, it's really not helpful. And that this is the thing too, is to the depth and the breadth that we're both asked to help and support through embodying our journey, not just talking about it, but like being the change we want to see in the world is really what we're being asked to do. And you know what?
It's pretty awesome.
I was not the word I was going to say. I was not going to say awesome. So say it's painful. You know, it's full of challenges. However, the things that I thought were challenges 6 years ago, when I walked in to give my resignation letter to the Department of Human Resources, like that was like me saying, no, that was me saying the thing that I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life. I'm giving up right now because my body told me that if I don't stop, I'm not going to be able to walk again. And I want to be able to walk again, but I don't know what's next. Other people are having those experiences, you know, right now. So that was death now. What has felt like death recently is not knowing like where I'm going to stay tomorrow. Well, I know where I'm going to stay tomorrow, but like the things that are, again, the things that we can adapt to, the level of uncertainty that we can flow with now versus then is very different. And therefore, we have the capacity to hold space for people who are the versions of ourselves that could not stop doing to save our lives until we did to save our lives.
Yeah. It, God, it's just such a crazy. I, and I wouldn't trade in my PTSD, the first lot, and I certainly wouldn't trade in the second lot, which is 2021. And I kind of joked that I caught it again, like I caught PTSD twice, a bit like catching
You
chickenpox
caught
or
it?
something.
It's contagious.
It's contagious.
I love
And
this statement from you is what in life has defeated you so far? The answer is
nothing.
not a thing. Well,
None
I
of
actually have to wrap up. Believe it or not,
it.
it's been almost 55 minutes of
I
us
can see.
chatting. So I would love to have you back. Thank you for being my first live guinea pig on Being Brave with Amy B. And the last question that I ask all of my guests is, if you could plant a seed of knowing, of a lesson or whatever arises in you in this moment as being the thing that you want every single person in the world to feel or know is true, what would that message or concept or knowing be?
It has to be love. Just know that you are loved, you are love, you can be love, and it's all here. It's all in there. No one needs to give it to you. You don't need to find it. You don't need to hunt for it or create turmoil to get to it. It is literally just there. Connect to who you are and who you're being, and it will just show up for you. And everything starts with love.
So, for those of our listeners who are listening to you and they're like, wow, I really relate to Rebecca's story, the parts that I've heard so far, because there is so much more, of course.
We kind of went from,
Hugh
as
wrote 4 hours
4 hours.
and 55 minutes. Yeah, welcome to our world.
And what we didn't add is then we've spoken for almost similar lengths of time almost every week since that initial conversation.
Yeah, that's true. And it's amazing. And when you find people, for me, like my abundance, truly, when I started to realize like my life was abundant, even when I like open up my bank account and I'm like, holy crap, there's only $10 in there or whatever, yeah.
I don't know how you're doing it. That is a whole next level here for me.
Like, because that happened recently, not in this moment, but that another now moment had that experience. And I realized the number of amazing humans, not that I only know from, since I kind of have been on this very intentional slash aware spiritual journey in like the last 8 years, but for my entire life, I am so the types of friendships and relationships that I've had the privilege and honor of creating with hundreds of people over the course of my lifetime, if not more. God, it could be more. Abundant in connection, abundant in relationships, abundant in laughter, in ideas, in opportunities, just in so much. And really, for me, like that's the thing that I always like step into and remind myself of when I'm in that fear space of like, but I only have blah blah blah, fill in the blank, but I only have. Look at how abundant my life is in amazing humans. This has always been true for me, and when I make a connection with someone like with you, like we don't just like throw you, oh hey, you're cool, throw you to the side. Like having the constant conversation, especially
Collecting people.
collecting people. You said it.
Yeah.
It's this beautiful opportunity to learn and grow and encourage and support and like do this thing together. It's pretty fucking, I don't even know. I don't even have words. It's spectacular.
Yeah. And just that it doesn't matter where you are or how things are going, you're not alone in it. And having that the tribe, isn't it? It just, and knowing that everyone's got your back. And when you're having a moment and you're in a tears, that you can just reach out and go, and somebody
Yeah.
has something to say, or a reminder that you can do it, or it's happening for a reason, or have you looked at it this way or that way? And it's just
knowing that people are with you. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to, although sometimes my ego will be like, please fix it, please fix it. But you don't need to fix it. You don't need to come up with a solution. You don't have to do anything around it except be with each other when we're in those moments of celebration, in those moments of like panic and fear. Like all of the moments matter, and we're allowed to be all of the elements of human and all of the elements of divine all at the same time. And isn't that what life is all about?
it is. It's awesome.
So for those people that are drawn to know more about you, how can they, what do you offer currently? How can people reach out and connect with you? Because you're
I've
amazing.
I guess I'm not about a one size fits all approach. I've got a lot of tools and a lot of different techniques to work with people on conscious and subconscious levels. So there's I'm not doing programs at the moment. I'm just working one-on-one and bringing people into that space and allowing them to access themselves and guiding that, which is where Atlas came from. It's like, hey, we've got this giant, everything exists. Where are we going? So Atlas Soul Journey on Facebook is my fledgling baby at the moment, and I've got a .com.au, which is my name. So RebeccaFrench.com.au, and both of those will get to me at some point, despite my technology challenges. But I think Facebook Atlas Soul Journey is the
It gets
easiest
better
way.
every day.
I know. I'm like, oh my God. And it's just growing in ways I didn't anticipate. Well, I did,
Of course.
but then I didn't believe it might have done that. I don't know. Here we are
So
again. Just, my life's amazing.
Atlas Soul Journey on Facebook is your business page, Rebecca French as your personal page, as well as RebeccaFrench.com or AU.
.com.au.
Because Australia.
Because
All
Australia.
right. So for those of you that have been with us this whole time, or for those of you that are tuning in for the very first time, that thank you so much for being a part of this very first Being Brave with Amy B live podcast version. We couldn't do it without you. There are so many different ways of supporting this podcast. This is truly what I feel is a Being Brave revolution. And your subscription, your tuning in, it's important. It means something. So if you would like to subscribe on Anchor, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, there's a YouTube channel, all of these different ways to support this movement. And there are shirts. Being Brave is the New Perfect. There's a Patreon. There's just a variety of ways to support this movement, as well as yourself as you're stepping into being more brave, being braver. Ooh, being braver-ish. And there will be all the details in the comments once we pop off. If you're interested in being in a group coaching program, there's one that starts in 2 Mondays if you're in the States, and Tuesday mornings if you're in Australia. And there are 8 spots open. It's an 8-week group coaching extravaganza and stepping into being brave in all areas of your life. I will be facilitating and also participating in the program. So we're all in this together. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and message me on Facebook or email me at sayyescoaching@gmail.com. And until next time, I see you, I believe in you, and I love you. And don't forget to be brave and say yes to you, all the parts of you. Bye.